Hello everyone, thank you for coming to our presentation for school nurses on implementing the Whole Child Initiative. It's an evidence-based activity that the CDC has created to help schools with engaging in wellness programs for the students. So let's get started. Our objectives today will be to discuss the principles of the Whole Child model and also identify the components of planning an initiative for your school that's unique to your students. And we're also going to describe data-driven methods which we can use to evaluate whether our program is actually assisting in helping improve the wellness of our students. Now first let's just look at, this is not how we want our students to come to school. We don't want them to be bored. We don't want them to come to school anxious or angry or hurt or hungry or sad. So what can we as school nurses do? First, we want to make sure we educate ourselves on the process. Look at some of the things that impact the overall health of our students. We have situations where health disparities will affect the students. This creates higher rates of absenteeism, lower reading scores. We've got asthma, teen pregnancy, aggression, so many issues that we can help the student with, because these types of health issues will in fact impact their ability to pursue a healthy lifestyle. So what can we do? That's a little bit about learning of the general impact. And now look at the Whole Child model. It's a graphic depicting something that's similar to what the hospitals are doing. Everything is moving to patient-focused care, and everything is moving to getting specific dynamics on your individual population by using informatics. So I'm an informatics major, and so that's of interest to me, and then also teaching others how to utilize that to help improve, in this case, the wellness of our students in our schools. So you see the student is at the center of our plan that we're going to initiate, and then around it are the 10 initiatives, and circling the child are the 5 core measures for the Whole Child Initiative. So let's move right to the core measures. First of all, we want to make sure our students come to school healthy. And then while they're there, we will make sure they're impacting their families and helping them impart healthy practices for life. Each student, we want to make sure they're feeling that they are in an environment that is physically and emotionally safe. And then we want to make sure the student is actively engaged in learning and feels connected to their school and their community. We want to make sure each student feels challenged, such that they feel academically prepared. We don't want to get to that boredom that we spoke about earlier. So what I want you to do is take the forms that are in front of you. I want to do a little bit of brainstorming. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it means for your specific school and your practice environment, whether it's K through 8, whether it's K through 5 or high school? And we've already broken up into those groups, I think. And then we'll talk a little bit later and put the images on the board or ideas on the board that you've come up with. Okay? We've got a couple of sections here that we'll go over. Now, if that is part of the assessment phase, let's look at the planning. So some examples of the issues that are unique to your school. It could be that there are literacy levels of the population served that are a little unique. Do we have a blue-collar working environment? Do we have many homes that are dual working parent homes, and then we have nannies? That impacts the teaching that will be involved and the learning. Do we have the safety aspect? Do we have lots of construction going on in the area? How are we going to plan our after-school programs? Do we have a neighborhood that's walkable so that we can plan a lot of the programs at school? If we had a neighborhood that we had lots of construction, we probably don't want to plan it at the location of the school. We'll look to be more in the community, look for other community venues to do that. Do we have a lack of paraprofessional resources that are at our individual schools, such that we know that the parents might be using paraprofessionals in other areas, either near their school and near their home if they live near an academic health center? We'll know that once we make referrals that be able to track where they're using those resources. Some schools have more paraprofessionals than others. So can you think of any other of these specificities about the community that could impact? And so we're going to put that on our next slide. And you have a section on your worksheet where you can do that in your groups as well. Okay, now we're moving on. Thank you for getting together in your groups. And now we'll look at our second example of planning, which involves engaging the parents, their students, and other school volunteers. So how do we do that? We might want to have some neighborhood in-home meetings. We may want to have pep rallies to kick off events. And we may want to invite some local elected officials to attend and mention our initiative and asking them to mention the initiatives at their council meetings. It's an election year. Don't know how much time they'll have for that, but it's something to think about. Now, here again on our worksheets, because everybody, some of us may be in the community environment as far as suburbs, and so sit in your groups and think about what ways you can do to implement engaging the families and parents and communities. Now, we are at the implementation phase, so we're going to look at the 10 components a little bit closer. So the first thing, we as nurses want to make sure that we're generating policies and processes at our individual schools to help ensure that we are administering the process, and we want to keep it standardized because a lot of these measures will also be data-driven and be utilized to do further research. So our first initiative deals with health education. We want to create a comprehensive, formal, structured health education curriculum for K through 12. Partly it'll be planned learning and partly it'll be need-based, and then it'll also be based upon the student and family preferences because we want to make sure that they are also involved. So the next part of our circle and our wheel that we saw was the nutrition environment services that are allowed inside, and opportunities that are allowed inside the schools for the students to practice healthy habits. We have the next category will be employee wellness. That's looking at those who are helping and teaching the students. That's the teachers and us as the school nurses as well. Then we need to look at the social and emotional school environment that we are creating for our students. Does it promote health? Does it promote growth and development? And looking at the physical environment of the school as well. Okay, Initiative 6 has to do with the health services that we'll be providing in the schools. We want to look to make sure that access is collaborative with the school and community. We're going to create medical home environments to reduce social stressors and economic barriers to obtaining health. We're going to make sure it's right in our school systems. The counseling, the psychological services. We want the community involved and some family engagement as well. And then, of course, physical activity. We do that pretty well in many schools. There may be a few schools that need to have some collaboration with the physical education teachers. So more on the implementation. I mentioned the collaborative efforts, but some of the partnerships that need to be executed to make sure that the policies and processes will actually get to impact and become something that's standard and sustained over time. So we've got to have administrative support. We want the school board to be on board as we speak. And then we want to make sure that we're creating a scenario where a lot of the universities in the area, if there are any, and the faith-based organizations, we're going to start sharing facilities. So this will become, creating that sense of community. We're going to partner with non-governmental associations, and I think we see some of them named here, and we've talked about them before. But one of the most important parts, and that's where I enjoy the informatics coming into play, we need to make sure we're doing pre- and post-school assessments. We need to make sure we're doing pre- and post-school health assessments as well as needs assessments. And then we're going to take a cross-disciplinary approach to synthesizing this data to come up with, figuring out, are we struggling in our schools? Where are we struggling? Which initiatives are working and which are not? So some of the potential key indicators we want to look at is monitoring the wellness of our students, as well as tracking the population and health issues to ensure that we are moving forward and identifying the proper outcomes for our children. So the last aspect is correlating these indicators. Again, we're going to go back to the 5 core measures and correlate those to hopefully come up with some data outcomes that will help to ensure that we are making an impact. We are creating cost savings and improving the health. Thank you very much, and please feel free to finish your group sessions, and then we'll work back together and finalize this with some conclusions that we've come up after this. Thank you very much.